G'day friends and fans, welcome to Day Talks off Ukraine War Update for the 2nd of August 2026. I'm your host, the author David Upperworth, author of the books ProWritingAid, Power Games, Into the Earthbound, The Erotic Tales from the Empire, Parts 1 and 2, Part 3 on its way. As the war continues, I'll continue to bring you comprehensive news and coverage from both sides of the war. And as you can see, there's a lot of red today. Now, we'll get to the attack in Moscow later. For now, we'll start with the attack on Kiev, although Kharkiv, Zaporozhye, Kherson, and Petrovrad. One of these days I'll say it right. Has also been targeted. Now, the majority of drones and various types of missiles hit predominantly what you would call military targets. These were warehouses across Ukraine, said to be part of the Ukrainian military industrial complex, primarily fuel. That's the priority of the targets. But the secondary targets are, of course, munitions warehouse, electronic warfare, air defenses, and, of course, drone production. Now, as targets present themselves, it is difficult to say precisely how many drones and missiles were fired. Ukraine says that it's 220, but in other news, which is probably exaggeration, Ukraine told, I believe it was Business Insider, that it's more likely a drone every minute. Without going into further detail, I believe there's two distinct drone and missile attacks. When we talk about drone and missile attacks with 222, these are long range. When I think the field commanders talk about drone strikes, they're talking about the ongoing strikes on each other's drone launching, and yeah. So there's the frontline drones, the little guys killing people, attacking equipment, and then there's the long range drones attacking buildings and sometimes people in the areas outside of the battlefield. So there was plenty of hits on Ukraine's capital today. Now there were strikes in Russia as well, and Crimea. Now some of the strikes on Kharkiv were in fact glide bombs, though it appears they're more now being focused on strikes in this area here, although sometimes, like I said, most strikes, because they don't make the news, don't make it to the map. So, but Kharkiv was hit, and again, we have no real smoke rising in Zaporozhye. More smoke rising. And then the various battlefield reports from the Ministry of Propaganda. The country who hasn't held an election in quite some time wants you to think it's defending democracy, folks. Yeah. Alright, so the operation to build a new border Russia continues to make small progress. In other areas, they have not made progress. And however, the front lines, as you can see, is expanding in other areas. Though no major town has fallen, the Russians are taking advantage of the Ukrainians hunkering down, and they are pushing here to absorb more towns. Though here the push has been stalled for some time, and of course, true to Russia's style, they go around. The Ukrainians are holding on in these areas, and the operations to secure uh, Koshnikovia continue, and the Ukrainians continue to let it go. The whole strategy, the strategy of Ukraine is multifaceted. It is not just the drone war on the front lines. Every operation, like Ukraine, will not retreat because they want to make they believe that every day they delay the advance of the Russians, it increases the cost of the war. It slows down the enemy, and therefore the Russians will eventually grow tired and give up. The other strategy. So you have the dug-in mentality. Slow them down, wear them out, and then eventually the millions of Ukrainians will rise up and push out the Russian. Any day now, the people will rise up against Russia. And then you have the bringing it home strategy. That is the long-range attacks organized by most of Western Europe to attack targets inside Russia. Now, Zelensky wants Starlink to provide them with the satellite guidance to launch even more long-range targeting attacks, and Starlink has refused to militarize. Now, Russia is accusing Ukraine of doing that anyway, using mobile phone frequencies to guide it. And eventually, yes, drones will have cell capabilities, because simply you cannot remote control that many devices without some sort of cellular technology involved. So devices will be given individual unique IDs, heavily encrypted communications will be used through both ground and satellite to monitor the device, because in the age of increasing electronic warfare, you have to decide to either try and cut off all these drones, and they are trying to find ways to harden drones against electronic warfare. And I think the increasing cost of electronic warfare, now, of course, part of Russia's strategy, of course, is, and same with Ukraine, is cutting power. By cutting power to regions, you destroy the electronic warfare and other air defense capabilities allegedly, because most of these carry their own power units anyway, and a lot of them can't connect to civilian power because they don't operate on the same power levels and frequencies of standard electronics. They need very specific frequencies of electricity. So we're going to see changes on the battlefield. Now, what happened to all these mobile defenses and all these other things? Well, it's like the Atlantic Wall now, isn't it? You can make the plans. Doesn't mean you can implement the plans. And both sides can't implement the plans they want, because once something destroyed, once the battlefield changes and continues to change, uh, construction, reconstruction, and other priorities, particularly trenching and mine clearing and logistics, simply take up the manpower that you would normally have time and the luxury of time to build things like bunkers and artillery positions and more fortified trench networks. So things become more ad hoc as the war continues. The strategies of the offensive and defensive commanders will often butt heads over resources, because with the offensive commanders, they will want more drones to fly out to attack, and the defensive commanders will want more drones to use in defense. And based on the numbers, you pretty much looking at hundreds of drones per day, and sooner or later, some drones that were once offensive will start being defensive. And they also look to other ways to defend against drones other than electronic warfare, because of the massive cost of these machines. And both sides have lost some of these machines in the last month. I shouldn't say machines, they are electronics, but yes, they're electronic machines. But as we look around the battlefield today, there are no significant changes to the map. But the significant change to the battle is behind the scenes. Significant changes to the war have occurred. Before I continue, the Empire of Elves official art book is launching soon. I need your support, and rather than just outright e-beg, I'm going to sell you product to get more bang for your buck. So not the whole purpose is, of course, to raise funds so that I can get more artwork for covers. Then you're going to say, why didn't you just get the artwork for covers? Because last time I tried to raise money to get artwork for covers, we fell short. And most people didn't want to fund artwork for covers. They wanted the artwork full stop. So since last time, most people funded the artwork for themselves. I'm focusing on that, hoping I get enough to fund from this to fund artwork for covers. And some of these, yes, will be available as soon as posters, and that, yeah. So there is that. All right. Now, one of the most significant changes is missiles. Now, as I said, Ukraine has new models, the Flamingo 7 and 9, Russia has the S-300. Now, the S-300 Banderol is a small cruise missile. Banderol means parcel or small package. So, is Wildberries attacked because of because of an interpretation of Russian intelligence talking about delivering small parcels to Ukraine, and Ukraine's linear thinkers attacked parcel centers, thinking that was a threat to Ukraine. And here is what the small parcel they intend to deliver. Now, the military intelligence of Ukraine revealed that Russia is using a new cruise missile called the S-800 Banderol. Now, how did they get hold of this amazing intelligence? Well, I found the video that's published the same day that Ukraine put out its story about uncovering this new cruise missile. So, Ukrainian intelligence pays people to watch YouTube, apparently, to watch Russian videos. So, you may accuse me of Russian propaganda, but hell, that's what Ukraine is doing, watching Russian propaganda. Alright, so Russia's put out videos on its new missile system, and Ukraine discovered it. Well, and where is this amazing discovery? This amazing Ukrainian intelligence has discovered YouTube, everyone. Woo! All right, so the standard tube launched. High pressure tubes sealed in, popped them out at high speed. This is probably taken from the Arctic testing ground, where they just park it there and see what happens, see if it could work days or weeks later. And is now field testing, however, they were tested in the fields of Ukraine. Now they are marked as illustrations, I know, but here we go. Tube flops open. Yep. Blowback is huge. And it's now the Banderol travels slower than most cruise missiles, only half the speed of sound. As you can see, its ignition is enough to the gas expansion of the initial ignition is enough to thrust it out of the tube as it ignites its discharge. Now, unlike most new missiles, this is a cruise missile. So after it pops out wings and guidance fins. But along the way, it goes terminal. And when it goes terminal, that's when it loses its wings and fins and its final. Yeah, so it can't be. So even if it's hacked, it got no error. It's got no way of maneuvering away. Yeah, that's what it looks like. That's what it more looks like. Yeah, yeah. So it only uses wings as a means of guidance. This uses evasive technology. As you see, it's got small receivers on top where it receives updates. Now, this is not your standard missile. See, originally it was designed to be delivered by drone. That a large drone carry it under its wing, depending on which version of Orion it was deployed on. Sorry, Orion. Sorry. The proper name is Krostadt or Orion, and it's the primary launch vehicle and has been for the last 3 months. As you can see, it's got rather striking resemblance to your Global Hawk, but it's got a surprise package, and that is the banderole. This is the small parcel that the Ukrainians were. This is the small parcel that the Russians were delivering by drone. So the next time they hear about drone deliveries, yeah, this is what Russia meant by drone deliveries. Now, it is a jet. However, the interesting part is in the last month, it has been fitted to the Mil-28 Havoc, and of course, it's now been also revealed to be ground launched capable. Its ground launch is just, to make it more in line with deployment by Russian forces, but it can be, as you see, airdropped and wing deployed. There it is, airdropped. And well, Russia's field commanders watching it in real time, in real life, take out a Ukrainian building, Ukrainian missile launchers, and of course, this is the latest to ground launch them in batches. Now, as I said, right now, one of the targets they're not talking about, and one of the pretty sure these the ground stations along the front lines, where the Ukrainian Talking to Business Insider was talking about the frontline drone war, where these allegedly detect and or stop the majority of drones from penetrating deep in the Ukraine. But as the need for as the need for electronic warfare expands, the Russian threat expands, and they're looking for new ways to protect against the growing threat. This is the new system Damba from Ukraine, but there's still a sharp increase in the amount of drones and drone activity. Drones and drone activity is not just on the battlefield, but moving further and into Ukraine. Yeah. 1,000, 2,000. Yeah. The number of drones has increased to around 2,000. So when the Ukraine says, "Oh, we shut down 200," yeah, what about but oh no, it's 114 of 200. I swear. You're wondering where I'm telling you that they're lying. Well, in other articles I read every day, like on Business Insider, a Western publication, the Ukrainians are talking about thousands of drones a month, with hundreds per day, as often as. So the numbers being told by different outlets are never matching up. They have all this access to the same information I do. It's all the Ukrainian information is supposed to come from one source. But see, the people giving the interviews are mixing up the truth with lies. It's a natural human habit. No matter how many times you tell someone to lie, someone is eventually going to and quite often you're always going to have someone who slips and tells you the real number of drones. And the real number of drones hitting Ukraine is not in the hundreds, but is in the thousands. And the Ukrainians are complaining that they need to increase production from 500 to 1,000, and within months they're going to need 2,000 electronic warfare units a month. Why is that? Because most of the attacks, that's what they're hitting, the electronic warfare and detection units. So the majority of drones are not attacking civilians, as Zelensky claims. That is my point. But too many people out there are so propagandized, so worried about defending democracy, that whenever someone says, I'm a great defender of democracy and free healthcare, you believe everything they say blindly, instead of using critical thinking and wondering what their selfish motives are, staying in power with Zelensky. Well past his election date, his term has expired. He's stayed on well past his exit. Oh, but no, that's Donald Trump. Now, the only reason why Trump, for now, is working with Zelensky is on the promise he will eventually stand down and fix later the loopholes that Ukraine presidents gave themselves to stay in power by declaring national emergencies. I'm not blaming Zelensky for the loophole, but I blame him for exploiting it and then crying like a little baby when told to step down by the courts. He was given 90 days to step down. Instead, he fired the courts. Every Liberal's dream. Hey, the judge didn't go my way, I will fire them. But no, don't you dare, Donald Trump, defy the judges. Judges' orders are absolute, comrade. So you have Orwellian fascism before your very eyes across the world. But you think Russia's the threat. No, it's the enemy within who needs to be dealt with. But can we get Russia to back off? Some, like Professor Kenan Tarok of Turkey, he is involved somehow in the negotiations for a settlement. I don't think they've made it clear. Now, he's advising the replacement of Volodymyr Zelensky with a pro-peace figure in Ukraine. She's... No way. Have I not told you before that Zelensky's the obstacle to peace? But somehow, no, it's up to this Turkish woman to say, yes, Ukraine has doomed Turkey's peace efforts, and their current peace efforts are doomed to fail because every time, every scenario they've put into Zelensky's hands is met with a firm no. She recalls that the Turkish foreign minister, and the diplomatic efforts of NATO and Ankara sought to bring everyone together to the table in Istanbul. She watched them as they exchanged pleasantries, gave their firm commitments to resolutions to end the war, and then watched them as they all firmly were greeted by skepticism. By the following day, the Ukrainians were not even showing up at meetings, giving firm no's to proposals handed to them without reading them, and then demanding that Vladimir Putin fly to Kiev to formally end the war and speak directly to Zelensky, and the war can be over. Because if he hears my words, he will give up. He will understand the pain that he has caused. And people out there believe that would end the war. People believe that this is nothing more than a ploy to lure out Vladimir Putin so Zelensky can kill him and be a hero forever in the eyes of Ukraine. And that is the real tragedy of the Ukraine war, is that Ukraine does not realize that it is being given sophistry, that the glory they're fighting for is not theirs. They are only victims and pawns in Zelensky's sick games, and that Zelensky is nothing more than the sock puppet of the gangsters and thieves that run Ukraine. They went from being cigarette smugglers, actors, and lawyers to politicians. Their so-called business successes all rely on the fact that they're state enterprises funded by siphoning off foreign aid. But no, Russia's corrupt, and yes, it's Russia. The West can never evolve or never progress past the Cold War. Why? Because the left want the Cold War, because during the Cold War, the left had all this power to protest, and they were a growing movement. Now they're a dying movement, a plant withering, a cornered predator, a parasite without a home dies. So the left will never understand they are the parasite killing the West, and that they cannot create a new civilization, because how can they? Their only function is to destroy. But now they're not satisfied with destroying the West. No, they're going to bring down Russia and China and everyone else with them, not realizing they're just playing into the hands of the left in China, who also want this grand destruction, because it's the only ideology they know. It's the only ideology they have. Now, the reason why Russia cannot bring around a successful end to the Ukraine war is because no matter how many businesses they attack, the majority of Ukrainian businesses, particularly weapons production, other than the physical storefronts and distribution points, most Ukrainian businesses that are involved in the military are outside of Ukraine, daring Russia to attack them. Most are adjacent to Ukraine, but now the Russian Academy of National Economy and Public Administration in Russia are trying to find a way to isolate Ukraine, and it is going to be nigh on impossible. I say nigh on. There are a few ways Russia could attack and carry out. Again, it involves a level of devastation that Russia is not yet prepared to engage in. This is not nuclear. This is systematic destruction of a large-scale systematic destruction of Ukraine's road and rail network, airports, ports, on a grand scale. To hammer Ukraine so hard in specific industries. Now, it comes at a risk But there are ways. So whenever some expert tells you, no, Ukraine is impossible to defeat, it's a distributed node. No, yes, but everything comes to right from everything has to make its way to the front line. You can use 1,000 cars, 100 cars, a million cars. It doesn't matter. They have to pass. They have to be fueled. They have to pass through checkpoints. That fuel, the more cars you use, that means the more bulk fuel you need. Right? You can't have 1,000 cars with 1,000 jerry cans and 1,000 drivers all trying to move tons of equipment every day. Russia is just analyzing the patterns, preparing its strategies, and trying to come up with a hybrid attack model. And for now, their idea is to attack the warehouses and fuel stations, because there are no military-only fuel stations. Right, the entire military-industrial complex for Ukraine has been embedded into everyday life, so you don't see it. It's invisible, and it's part of the entire network to try and reduce the ability of Russia to single-handedly destroy it in one decisive strike. But they don't need one decisive strike. They could build, if they continue to build up enough rockets and missiles like Iran did, but they haven't, because they are not. Now, Russia's part of its own alliance, and it is now a trap. It's now trapped in its own alliance. And the West, instead of trying to destroy Russia so that they can pat themselves on the back, they should, but they don't want to play the harder game. They want the easy way. They want the violent way. The violent way is more spectacular, and spectacle brings both fear and awe, whereas a clever diplomatic victory is not, for want of a better word, sexy enough for NATO. No, Ursula von der Leyen is so worn out, the only way she can feel something is if it punches her in the face. And so they want a military victory because they are such bored, worn out hags. Now, the fear right now, and this is the only reason why I bring up this story, is the fear right now in the West that this was a rogue Ukrainian operative. That someone was recruited to now, whether or not it was a Ukrainian state or someone else. Now, if it was the Ukrainian state, I think we'd know by now. But the fear is that someone recruited by Ukraine has used Ukraine as a means to carry out their own ideological attack on Russia. That they used they're saying an improvised explosive, but they used explosives improvised into a parcel bomb. Now, there was also the head of Rostov, who admits to owning one of the ships that was attacked today, said that it was part of the frozen food business, bringing frozen food from Turkey. There's no way of knowing or verifying, but the Moscow restaurant attack, quietly spoken, people are fearing that this was a rogue operative. They're not saying that it was Islamic terrorism or Ukrainian terrorism, but they have not released officially that the woman who carried the small parcel was a Russian or Ukrainian. But no ideological statement has been released by anyone. There's none of the usual terrorist chatter that has been associated with this. An ex-Pentagon analysis has come out and saying that this attack was not is not attributable to any one country or organization, because no group has claimed responsibility, no group is immediately identified as behind the attack, and the attack, however, was professionally carried out to maximize destruction and cause the maximum amount of fear and panic in Moscow. Now, we've seen these terror attacks before. Now, last time, they did turn out to be Ukrainian state actors. This is the fear. And why do I say the Russians fear that it's Ukrainian state actors? Because that means that a peaceful solution is off the table. Russia has said Ukraine does not intend peace. They've just ordered a year's worth of weapons for the war at the current rate of consumption. And that the FSB has already broken up another Ukrainian drone attack again to arrest two involved in ties to Ukrainian intelligence. So Russia continues to attack Ukraine and has not let up. An hour ago, launching a heavy attack on Odessa. So the war continues, and they plan the war to continue. So Ukraine plans to continue the war for at least another year. And as I said, as I warned, soon these attacks on Kharkiv will be bigger. Faster, trying to destroy Kharkiv faster than Ukraine can rebuild Kharkiv. Then they'll hit here fast, and you can see the dots are piling up on the map, new dots. They'll hit Dnipro. They'll just keep hitting cities harder and bigger. Escalation. The solution is to accept that you cannot control. If you cannot control and end this war, if you cannot achieve your goals, you have to accept and move on. But see, as children, we're taught to try again. Women now complain that that's harassment. So now you have generations of kids giving up on their dreams and hopes simply because everyone wants to be an absolutist, to have one answer for everything. Everything always has to be my way. And so we have a world of constant conflict because there's no negotiation. It's just, I'm not here for you. Well, I'm sorry, but yes, you are. You just can't accept it. So many people in this world can't accept anything. They can't accept who they're born as. They can't accept that they can't get their way all the time. And they just can't accept that supporting the left is supporting evil. But no, that's freedom. Well, fine. Get off your ass then and go to war. You'll see there's no glory in the revolution. That's just nostalgia talking about the time you got your way, or allegedly got your way. But in reality, all you did was take out your frustrations on others through murder. And so many on the left are carrying out murder by proxy. And you're also going to hear a lot of stories from Ukrainian intelligence about how there's panic in Moscow and there's big meetings. Yes, there's always a big meeting in Moscow. It's so easy to always claim Russia in panic. I've heard this for 5 years, almost every day. Russia's in panic. They're looking to replace Putin. Yes, there's always someone looking to replace Putin. Just like in Ukraine, there's always someone wanting to replace Zelensky. Just like how Andy Burnham and the establishment replaced Keir Starmer because he failed to sell Agenda 2030. It's like there's lots of people who want to replace Trump because they're willing to implement Agenda 2030. Because there are so many people who are not willing to work, but they want the big jobs, and they're willing to be a sycophant to some psychotic, and ultimately the psychopath club. I mean the World Economic Forum. No, I got it right the first time, didn't I? The psychopath club who run Ukraine, run Europe, run parts of America, just want more. Oh yes, and they've run Canada underground, and they control Mexico. No, Sheinbaum is the president of Mexico, yes. And I'm the king of England. Or should be the king of England. Which is it? Well, I'd do a better job than Chuck the duck lover. A man so trapped by royal protocol, he won't even reach into trash because it's beneath his dignity to get his hands dirty, you know. Dignity, my frickin' ass. So, yes, I'm well aware there's panic in Moscow because that is Ukrainian propaganda and people believe it. But there's no panic in panic. Putin and his allies are trying to stop, I repeat, trying to stop Medvedev and his faction from carrying out Omsk attacks in which they pretty much drop 10.5 tons of XHT explosives on let's see, Kiev Power Station, the barracks at Kharkiv. Who knows? But or the military academy of Ukraine. Who knows what he plans to attack? But he promises systematic, as I said, systematically pulling the wings one by one off the flies, and seeing then if they will laugh. I think the compromise is in. They're targeting businesses that belong to the establishment in Ukraine. And until they've destroyed, which is going to take months, the network in Ukraine, Moscow is going to continue to try and defy America. Now, try. Russia has tried to defy the sanctions. They're finding China as an unreliable ally. Xi and Modi are playing both sides and playing each other and making promises that they can't keep or won't keep. We'll see soon whether or not the act passes. I think, what is it, Tuesday, Wednesday, Australian time, close. So let's see, 3 days from now, fourth video, 4 more videos before we find out whether or not the sanctions take place, and see whether or not India and China, sorry, the majority of businesses from India and China are hundreds of businesses around the world targeted for 100% tariffs, with the money going to pay off, allegedly, the... Now, I don't know exactly how this works or when it works, the economic plan that's supposed to kick in. But it's this new economy is going to take time and growing pains, and the war will inevitably grind to a halt. But as shown, Trump gets his way. So if given that if Trump gets his way and Trump has demanded the end to the war, and a return to the table, I think the meeting today in Moscow is about the sanctions and whether or not Russia has a plan. That's why there's the meeting of the Economic Forum and all the others in Russia and going on in Europe as well. Because the Economic Forum, don't forget, the Economic Forum has people in its membership who are about to be sanctioned. And part of those sanctions means they also get kicked out of Europe and cut off from European banking. Now, announcing these sanctions are coming, yes, it does mean ahead of time people get to move their money. But that's also part of the plan. Because it hurts the banks for supporting the war. It hurts a lot of people for supporting the war. So you've just paid a big price for putting Ukrainian flags on your bio and supporting war instead of peace. For those who did. For those who did not, I apologise. But you should have done more against those who support war. Now, that doesn't mean when the US and its interests are attacked, but there was no US interest in Ukraine, and there's no imminent threat to America or Europe had Ukraine accepted the Donbass deal. Again, it's the pride of England, particularly the establishment, that is driving this war. And it's long overdue that the proud Democrats who sycophant to the Marxist establishment got what they wanted. They want to live in a Marxist country? Fine. Find one and dump them in it. So thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Please support the channel. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.